So what do we got to record today? Oh, Persona 5. This will be fun.
Shut up and sit down.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Christian here, and today we're going to be reviewing Persona 5. Persona 5, I think, is by far the best game to come out for 2016 and 2017, depending on your respective regions. The story, by far, is something that has baffled me when it originally came out with the teaser trailer, with the chair, and now I think I fell in love with the whole premise. The gameplay is something that I just love, and most of the game is something that puts it up there as that star value that I love. But if you want to really know the whole thing, let's break it down one by one. Here we go, into the story. So the story for Persona 5 is pretty simple, but also pretty basic. To start off, you want to escape the hold of what adults have on you, or the emancipation. The main character and his friends, at the time Ryuji An and Morgana, are dealing with the very first enemy, which is Kamoshida. Kamoshida is using his power of being an Olympic gold medalist to be a corrupt king, and in doing so has caused many serious things like sexual harassment or even possible expulsion of two students who did nothing wrong, and they use their power to change his heart to force him to repent for what he did. This to me I think is a cool premise. And I love the fact that this game jumps on this idea as they jump on that the next few palaces, this is their goals, to change the heart of people who use the world. This comes from the same thing with the second palace, Madarame, and the third palace, Kaneshiro. I'm not going to go into too much detail on some other people, but I feel like that's where most people should have seen or should be. There is one thing I did love in the story nod. I loved the pretty much term they gave us. There is no one in this game you can trust. I'm not going to explain what that means, but when people find out what that means, I hope you enjoy that term, because that is the truth. Now, for story, I would say I think this probably is the most congruent and concrete story that has come out of Persona. For that, Persona 3 had the story that never ended, and Persona 4 just had a lackluster strength of a story. This game had a great escalation. It did not try to overdo it, and in doing so also left you 3 months for time to flow down. So you hit your peak and then time goes down for during 3 months. That to me is a great progression, because now you get to see the after effect of what you did. I would say the only downside about the story, and this is just my nitpick, the bad guys are way too predictable. Now, excluding the one of them, because you kind of meet them in the beginning of the game. The other one is more annoying because they made his reference way too obvious, and I couldn't stand it. I actually, to be honest, pointed it out in my Let's Play video, and I also pointed it out to friends, because even they noticed it. To me, I don't want to be mad about them making an obvious reference, but at the same time, don't make the villain so obvious. It's one of the reasons in Persona 3 I could accept that there was somebody in that game who turns his back on you and you didn't even see it coming at first. That's cool. It's the difference from Adachi in 4, where Adachi, and yes, this is not a spoiler, everyone knows this, was the bad guy of 4, but yet it wasn't as strong, because it just seemed like he was coming off too, obvious. So for me, if I was going to say the story is great, I would still give it the star value I'm going to give it, but I'm going to do the scores at the end, because I think that all in all, this story was by far the best that Persona has ever seen, And if anything comes out after this, I am going to be glad to try some new stuff. So, let's move on to the gameplay. Now for here, I'm going to be separating this into, I think, 5 different categories because there are 5 different things that have changed in this game. To start off, I'm going to get into the battle system because this is by far the most important. So to start, they've changed how the basic attack works. In the original games, basic attack used to just be slash, pierce, and bash. This was annoying because if you brought a teammate in there who had pierce and someone was immune to pierce, that teammate couldn't do any basic attacks. And if that person was also was nullifying their element, that person couldn't do jack shit during that fight. They've changed it now where it is all just one separate melee, and if you run into that enemy who nullifies melee, here's the cool thing. No enemy in the game nullifies that shit. Nullifies anything else. If they nullify melee, they don't nullify anything else, making your characters all useful. Then let's talk about the gun mechanic. The gun mechanic, I think, is by far the best change they've ever made to the game because it gives you another form of attacking. Also, it gives you more of a strategy with these things. To give you a great example of what I'm talking about, when I was using On, who I found out her gun is a random multiple hit gun. It's harder to use her gun than, say, Ryuji's, because Ryuji's is 8 to 2 bullets. But at the same time, if you know the enemy is weak to gun, just use On, because who knows? She might hit all the targets. If she doesn't, she gets another round. Don't be afraid to use the gun. Another very cool thing that they do, now this is from a social link, or Confine It, I still call them social links. There is an ability called Gun Down, which what Gun Down is that the main character wastes, I think, half of his bullets if you get an upgrade, but it used to be all of his bullets to down an opponent immediately. The reason this is important is because in the game, you're going to be dealing with some enemies who have no weaknesses, and who are fucking frustrating as hell to kill. Meaning you can't crit them. So this is your way of critting them. This to me is very good because it makes me not want to waste bullets, but at the same time also, it gives me an automatic, okay, we're screwed, down that person, let's go. There are a few enemies who are immune to gun down that they don't tell you, but in all, gun down isn't that bad. The only other thing is that yes, the guns run on an ammo source. What makes them better than the melee weapons? They deal more damage, they can do more damage during a fight, and if you're in need of using something, say if it's immune to melee but it's not immune to gun, just use the gun. It works either way. Next thing. Now I don't remember what this is called, but I just called it weakness aim. It's the, I believe, R1 button. What weakness aim is to me is that when the fight starts, you can press R1 and your character will cycle through all of his skills. Same with your partners. And if they find a skill that matches the opponent's weakness, they will land on that skill, land on that partner or the enemy, and do the move. This also counts for baton passes. This to me was so useful because if they hadn't have done this, it would have been so fucking frustrating having to switch between your skills over and over again. As fights get more and more tedious, you don't want to be cycling between your skills or cycling between your enemies or your personas. So this by far is probably one of the best things that they've ever added. And I think by far the biggest thing that this weakness aims adds is it adds one of those strategic moments. If you don't know the enemy's weakness, figure it out, then use weakness aim to figure out who's going to be taking it down. There are points where I had nuclear, but I also had Makoto, and I asked myself, should I do the nuclear damage or should she? Because if she does it, she's using her SP. If I do it, I'm using my SP, but I don't have healing, is the thing. That was always what I kept thinking of. Do I need to use this? And sometimes I didn't. So that's what I found cool. I actually, to be honest, never knew about paying attention to what a teammate should use. And I think, for me, I blame the final boss fight. The next thing. Now, this is another one from a confinement. All party use. This one allows you to use every party member in your battle or in a battle. What does this mean? One of the biggest problems Persona had was that when you are given these team members, you're given like, I think it was 9 and 3 and 8 and like 7 and 4. The problem was, you picked your 4 people, you picked your navigator, and you ran into the fight. These are people you were stuck with. And if you remember my issue I mentioned with the change to melee, yeah, if that person can't do anything during the fight, you picked a bad person and you're stuck with them until the rest of the night. You can't tell them to, you can't swap them out. I think you couldn't tell them to leave. Yeah, you couldn't tell them to leave. You were stuck. And all I kept thinking to myself was, why would they do something like this? Oh wait, these complaints. Finally, you're able to use your entire team. And that helps because during battles, say one of your teammates is low on SP, just swap them. Yes, it's Joker's turn that you're giving up, but to be honest, Joker's turn is really easy to skip. Because Joker's turn is made to use Persona skills, use his gun down, or even possibly use some buffs on a teammate. Joker is the most versatile strategist ever. That's why I think it's fine for Joker to be able to tell them to swap. The next thing I'm also going to talk about is the talking mechanic that they added. So in this game, one of the most fucking irritating things from 3 and 4 is when you kill an enemy, they'll stop and show you a card, and it'll be fucking Pixie. And you don't want Pixie. You don't want that motherfucker. So what did they change in this one? Now yes, you do get Pixie, but you go in, you down the opponent, and then you aim at your gun at them. Then it asks you 2 questions. All out attack, or 3 questions. All out attack, back out, or talk. What does talk do? If you talk to them, you get 3 options. Lend me your power, give me more money, or give me an item. Lend me your power allows you to choose to make them part of your team. This to me was the best choice of mechanic because all this is saying is that you can ask them to join your team. You do not have to get a person every time. And yes, this is the most fucking irritating thing from the original games because there were times I got personas that I didn't want. So it helps. Another important thing is that if you don't want them, just click item or money. Or just all-out attacking. I've done that through most of my fights. If I wanted a shadow or a persona, I would just... Come here, join my team. And there are times that I do it just for fun. Since I've beaten the game, I don't really need to anymore, but even so, when I used to do it, what I used to wait for is desperation or beg my life, which is the next thing. Where when I lowered their health to a point where they're about to die, they'll stop the entire battle to beg for their life. The reason I do beg for my life instead of the talk mechanic, you still get the full XP from that fight. Not many people probably know that, do you? Yeah, if you do beg for your life, you get the full XP, the full money, and everything from that fight. If you don't, you actually do, you still get it if you kill them, but if you do the talk mechanic, you get whatever XP excluding the unit you saved. So to me, that actually works for me. I think that is a great idea for that mechanic. Is I more prefer them on the beg for life because at least I know I'm going to get full XP. On to a better note, what skills do you use to knock people down? Well, you could use all the original base skills, but they did change 4. They did add 2 and change 2. To start off, let's get rid of the easy 2. Dark and Light finally have basic elements. Well, most people don't understand why this is a frustrating thing from the original games, but let me break it down in the simplest way possible. Mudu, Hama, they sucked. They fucking sucked. If you don't know how bad they fucking sucked, go back to Persona 4 and look at Izanagi no Okami. That fucker was immune to both. You couldn't kill him with either. They sucked. So what did they change now? They have now made them skills. They're now skills that can actually damage a person instead of trying to insta-kill. Because it made no sense. Then they had to add 2 other elements. I think that this was actually a great idea, but they do have a downside for me. And that was Nuclear and Psychic. Nuclear and Psychic, I think, definitely add some new elements where Nuclear, if they're hit by a burn, shock, or frozen, it deals more damage. And then with Psychic is if they're affected by any form of status effect that affects the enemy, that's not burn, shock, or frozen, they take more damage. The only reason I don't I figured these were a downside. Now this is just me. This could be anybody else. They became 2 of the strongest characters. This is just me, by the way. But my team usually consisted of Haru, the Psychic user, Makoto, the Nuclear user, and Morgana. But Morgana was for healing. It was pretty much, I used those 2 because they had the strongest skills. And it sucks. I don't like saying that they were bad, but they have that one problem. On to the next part of the gameplay, Stealth Run. So in the game you have 2 new things. I don't believe there was ever a run button in Persona. I think you just moved as fast as you moved. So they finally added a run button, which in the first few palaces you're never going to use. It won't be until you get to Futaba's Palace where the run button will actually be used. And I think the run button is a very useful thing because I don't want to fight some things. I just want to get to where I need to go. There you go. The stealth mechanic, though, God, is this thing great. This thing is so useful because I've had moments where I've almost got caught, hit the X button, hit a wall, and they didn't know where I was, and all I kept hearing is the thud of my controller as its heart beats. It's scary, but it works because you actually are playing a stealth game. One important thing that I do have to add, though, and this is just a downside onto it, sometimes button prompts aren't as clear in their transition. What this mostly means is that when I press a button and try to do something, it doesn't work as clean as I want it to be. And I've had moments where I'll be turning the camera and I guess I turn it too far and not know, break off of the wall and get hit with a sneak attack from an enemy. Not knowing it because the camera, I can't see anything from that angle. But again, that's something I'm not going to get mad about because it's harder to do stuff like that. Another great addition is the third eye. The third eye is a mechanic you gain from doing your social link with Igor. And third eye is probably the best thing they've ever added because of what it can do. It is a puzzle-solving device. It is a device that helps you find enemies, find items, and find unique things around the world. It also has one other use that makes me love it. During Mementos, there is a part where you will start driving and you can't see. Drive in third eye. Turn third eye on and you can see. Third eye is the best thing ever because it turns the light on. It's actually light for you. And I didn't know that until I used third eye, and I love it. I love third eye for what it does. The last thing I want to talk about before I get into one of the downsides that I do think exist is the crazy detail to the palaces. Now, this is definitely an upside because I think they learned this from Persona 4. In Persona 4, they had many different areas for you to explore, but the problem was they were all pretty much dungeons. They were just run around a dungeon, good. They were almost a great reference to Mementos. Palaces, on the other hand, they are palaces. They are built, and you have to traverse them as many ways as possible. And I think that that is cool. It shows the evolution that Persona goes through, and that I think, in theory, if I was going to do a game myself, I would put this much detail into my main areas and do what I did to Mementos, where it just looks like the original areas. It shows how much we've evolved and how much more the palaces are more you want to be in them. Which is why when you destroy them, it's sad. Now, one of the problems that I have seen in the game, and many people have complained about it, I kinda did. The game can maybe have a difficulty spike, and if this happens, there is two ways around it. The first way is to lower the difficulty. Now, a lot of people don't want to do this because if you lower the difficulty, well, you're pussying out. But if you rate, or if you want to keep your difficulty and just, kill some time, go into Mementos and just go farm for a little bit. I know many people are afraid of the thing that kicks you out of Mementos, the Reaper. During my entire playthrough, I never saw him. So I don't even think he is a threat in that game, which is one downside of him. Other than that, let's move on to the social links. So what things did they change to the confinements or social links? They have two new things. First thing, they add bonuses for finishing them. Now, most people don't know that if you finish them and they weren't your teammates, because I did actually know that if they were your teammates, they did give you stuff. If they weren't, they didn't give you stuff. Finishing them now, almost every single one gives you something that relates to the gameplay, relates to this game itself, and I like finishing each and every one because to me, they're doing their job. They're actually, to be honest, pushing me to get these done so I can have them on my side. The only issue I'm dealing with is that when you finish some of these, there are only a few of them that I think you should actually work on. Because like when I mentioned the guy who does Gun Down, you need to finish him, but you have to wait till halfway through the game to finish him. Same goes for the one who teaches you the party one. You have to wait halfway through the game to get that one. I'm not going to criticize them for it because I understand maybe doing like all these transitions is not that great, but it is irritating, just a tiny bit. Other than that, the main game that changed, I mentioned the third eye can be used outside of the world. Working and clubs. Back in Persona 3 and back in Persona 4, you had to work and you had to club. You had to go to clubs. The reason you had to work? Social links. Clubs? Social links. Want to know how much they changed that? If you go to work, there's one social link you have to go to. Afterwards, you never have to work there again. I'm not kidding. Clubs, they don't exist. This by far is the best change ever, and I understand why they did the club change. You are looked at as a criminal in this game. Why would any club accept you? I love that. That makes more sense. The only other thing also, requests. Now, this is a change because Margaret and Elizabeth used to be the ones to do this, but requests don't have a timer. I have not hit one request that timed out. So to me, this is cool. This is actually a great change because that means I can take my time and get requests done, and if I feel like it, I can just do them one at a time. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, some changes to the series. The first thing is that it's based on a real location. That's something that a lot of other games have not done. So it helps now that there's some place that we actually can base this around. If I'm correct, I think I've actually played Devil Survivor 2, where the game takes place in the same area. So Boy, that town does not like, that town loves getting destroyed. Just saying. But palaces also are nods to the seven sins. So if anybody hasn't figured this out yet, yes, they are nod to seven sins. It's probably not as obvious until you get past Kanashiro's, but once you figure it out, it's a cool reference. Also, this is just me, but by the end of the game, I loved the biblical reference because I felt it was funny. There's a biblical reference at the end, and everyone's gonna love it. It is too much. And then there is the Velvet Room. So one of the things they changed to the Velvet Room, as you can tell throughout the years of Persona, any Persona need to move on to become people's Persona. As a great example, Takumi Kazuchi. That is now Kanji's Persona. Wouldn't it not make sense if you could summon it? Now I know there's DLC that gives you personas of the protagonist, just pretend those don't exist. I'm talking about like that scenario. Well, they fixed it. How so? They took Takumi Kazuchi out and put new ones in their place. Now, one thing that they did do, which you can tell by them not having enough time maybe, like there's Black Slime, Kushinada. There are characters in the game who are just the same character, but a new color. And I don't want to fault them because you know what? It's true. They have to do that. They are running out of personas. They've got to add new ones later, but right now, that's what they got. On to the music. So, it's good, but I'm not an audio guy. I'm not a guy who will sit here and, I guess, like scream and fall over the music, because to be honest, it's just music. It's just music. But I will say I did find 7 tracks that I love. And I can't complain. There was just one tiny thing that I couldn't stop doing, and that was that sometimes the music sounds like elevator music. And I almost fell asleep to that music. But I'm fine, because there's songs like Rivers in the Desert that definitely solve that problem. So it's a toss-up depending on what you want to hear. The quality. This game came out literally last year, and it's now out this year. Its quality is beyond what the level of what any other game is. And you can tell the care and love that went into this game. I mean, there was barely any problems I saw. I mean, the transitions between the cutscenes was good. The transition between the gameplay cutscene or the engine cutscenes and all that, they were amazing. And that's why also, like, I can't wait for the anime version of this, because I bet you it's going to be phenomenal. As they've never screwed up a Persona anime yet. And just as a final note, the entertainment value. How much did I enjoy the entertainment? I would put 100 hours into this. I think I was utterly entertained. The only other things that I want to complain about, and which is why this game is going to get some merits. The first off, there's not enough time between social events and social gatherings. What I'm talking about is that if you want to complete your confinements, or if you want to do something, there's not enough time. And I know that the game made this so it's multiple playthroughs, but it is a little frustrating. And I kind of understand why you want to make it so people can just go through the story and then later work on that stuff, but there are completionists. There are people who are going to lose their damn mind on this. So I just think, just keep that in mind. The other thing, this is a big reason I'm kind of taking a point off, because they made this mistake. They don't tell you about the calling card, your first palace, until you get to the treasure. The reason that this is a fault in Persona, everyone has known that you don't have to rush. You can wait till the last few days and finish something. And it's what even I did. No. You have to finish a palace. If it says 20 days, 18 days before it's done, because you have to send a calling card. If they would have told me this, I would have waited an additional maybe 2 days. But instead, because I was told about the calling card and was late, well, let's see. I lost all my progress, I had to restart from there, and yeah, I didn't make that mistake again, and I rushed all the palaces. They need to tell you this stuff. I don't care if even Morgana stopped in a safe room to tell you that you have to send a calling card early. They really screwed that up. I know they were trying to do it for dramatic effect, but the thing is, I rushed a palace, so I got them all done, some of them done in 1 to 2 days. But to be honest, I shouldn't be able to get your palace done in 1 to 2 days. You should really space them out. So that's kind of why the calling card to me really was the frustrating part. It made me rush their work, and instead, I did not once ever feel bad about doing that. All in all, there is one other thing that hurt this game, but to be honest, I'm going to still say this. If this hadn't have existed, this game would definitely get a 9 out of 10 up for me. As I stated, there were problems with the calling card and also with the not enough time to do social events, but it's not too bad. What makes me drop it one more point is the Atlas boycotts. Atlas. This game is by far phenomenal. It's been out for 2 years. Why? Why are you boycotting this game? Why are you preventing people from streaming it? Why do you have such stupid rules? You shouldn't have that up. What you're doing with that is you're hurting people's potential of playing this game. Oh, you don't want people spoiling the story. I didn't spoil the story with my review. I just talked about a few parts. And guess what? If it's spoiling the story, I didn't say anything. I just said there's references. To me, what this tells me is that Atlas is behind the times and it's not willing to change with it. Then I don't want to fault Persona for it, but to know that I'm someone who can put it up because I'm a nobody, but people who put it up, they have to get Atlas's approval is so fucked up. That should not happen on a video game. And that's why it's going to be an 8 out of 10 until Atlas removes this boycott. If once it's removed, then it'll go back to a 9 out of 10. But this is more my thing saying that Atlas, you fucked up and you hurt your own game. And I want you to fix this mistake. And that's mostly what I've got to say. So, that's my review of Persona 5. If you liked it, like and comment, subscribe, talk about it in the comment section. Hell, tell me if you're going to go get the game, if you're going to play it, or if you disagree with everything I said. Just remember, keep being a neon star, never stop going.